Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds seem stacked back against the wall, but even consider it such, know you'll stand tall. Sat and watch from the sidelines, one too many times. Wicked games we play make me wanna lose my mind. Found solitude, knowing it'll be over soon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Contrary to the Culture. I am your host, Yasha King. This podcast has been created solely to explore the depths of cultures around the nation. We will have interviews from experts, challenge the mainstream ideas surrounding the cultural identities in our society, as well as make sure we touch on misconceptions we have about. All episodes are brought to you on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. on all major podcast platforms, not to mention my website, audacityofwomen.com. There, under the podcast tab, you can find transcripts from every episode. In order to know how we're doing, I need you to show us some love. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment your experiences, but most importantly, turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of the episodes. Now that that's done, let's jump into our episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Contrary to the Culture. If you have not caught up by now, this month, the month of August, we will be focusing on education in an effort to promote KMS Education, my soon-to-be nonprofit, y'all. And today's episode is going to be on education progression in color. We'll get into that, what that means, what that's going to look like. But I have to introduce my guest, Yasha Chapman, y'all. If you have not gone onto CEO Talk and checked out her episode, it is linked below so you can make sure you get a little bit more information on who she is, what she does, but she's absolutely amazing. I'm gonna just say that. Before I keep going, obviously, I'm gonna let her introduce herself, tell us a little bit about what she does and how this conversation is gonna go to the next level with her expertise. So obviously, I appreciate you immensely.
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yes. So
it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and I absolutely love talking to you. We always have great conversation, but we have to talk about, this topic. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and let them know why you're amazing at this education field.
Oh, absolutely. So as you stated, my name is Yasha Chapman. I am an educator and also an educational consultant. And so I have about 11 years of experience. I've worked as a classroom teacher, a tutor, a curriculum coordinator, an instructional coach, and now a consultant. And so what I do is I partner with schools and school districts, and I provide professional development training as well as instructional coaching for new teachers or just teachers in general who just maybe need more help with culturally relevant practices, culturally responsive practices, and it's all in efforts to decrease the academic achievement gap for Black students and help increase teacher retention. So that's just a little bit about what I do.
And that's absolutely amazing and what we're going to be focusing on today. And that's education progression in color, y'all. That's what the name of this topic is. So it means we're going to be talking about our babies of color, specifically more so because they have, at least from my perspective, we'll definitely dive into it, but my perspective is we have different skills and needs when it comes to achieving those skills that the rest of the group may not. So I want to definitely dive into that and get your expertise on that. But I wanted to start with, you're a military wife, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, awesome. I want to understand your background when it comes to education as you travel from state to state. Obviously, you're not going every month, but from your expertise, what have you gathered about the students from different states?
Yeah. So I'm originally from the South. I'm from Georgia. And I've had the opportunity to live in both North and South Carolina, upstate New York. I've done work in Pennsylvania and now work over here in California. And so all of these various regions, I find what tends to be the same trend is that regardless of where I'm working within education, that Black students are typically at the bottom of the totem pole. They have they perform the lowest in reading proficiency as well as in math. The poverty rate is still the highest for Black students, regardless of where I've been located. There's a high percentage of Black students that attend high poverty schools. There's still a disproportion between Black students and Black teachers. that has not been improved, and the school dropout rate continues to remain pretty steady for Black students. So whether you're in the North, the South, the East, or West, unfortunately, Black students continue to be amongst the most underserved communities. And Black teachers also continue to be the most underserved and just the most underdeveloped teachers that we have. And it's not because they don't possess the skills, mainly just due to leadership not believing in them and not giving them the proper resources and the proper training that they need to help propel them within the profession. And so, yeah.
And that leads me to a great question that I didn't share with you, but I'm curious. Kind of a conversation I've had in the past that has come up when it comes to HBCUs and predominantly white schools, POCs, right? No, POWs, PWIs, Lord Jesus, lost those acronym. PWI.
It's a minute.
right, I'm trying to keep up. Okay, when we're thinking about HBCUs and PWIs, would you say that you would push your kids to go to an HBCU or PWI for the sake of the quality of education or push that they may get?
That's a really good question. I believe that what HBCUs provide that PWIs don't is that just more of an enriching curriculum, more of a perspective of like appreciation of where they come from, so that they strive to go further. So because of that, I would want them to go to a HBCU. But on the contrary, I would also encourage them to go to a PWI just because the world is not made up of only Black people.
Right.
They have to learn to get along with other people who don't look like them from various backgrounds and be able to apply their critical thinking skills in order to advance themselves and their careers and to contribute to an overall greater society. So I don't know. I'm a bit torn. I would have to say, whatever they decide, I would support, but for different reasons. I think both are beneficial.
Right. Okay. So with that in mind, when it comes to the enrichment aspect, you focus on elementary school. That is your expertise. But would you say that is it better to introduce that early on, or would you say that maybe with the proper development, them understanding different personality traits themselves, further down the line, such as middle school, high school, it would be better to implement it there, or just wait for them to get to college?
Oh, wow. No, I would introduce it as early as 5 years old. I think that you can do it in bits and pieces that are developmentally, appropriate in ways that they can understand it, but always giving them an enriching experience to understanding who they are and where they come from, and understanding the responsibility and what's expected of them. Because whether they know it or not, society, unfortunately, has an expectation. They have stereotypes of Black students. And so regardless if my child is 5, 10, or 15, I want them to always be aware of what other people may perceive of them. And so I have to, as a parent, I have to equip them. And of course, as an educator, that I have to equip them as well with those reasoning and just understanding the world around them and having a sense of cultural awareness and all of those things. So I don't think it's too early to introduce it. I think the earlier the better. But of course, just doing it in a way that's developmentally appropriate.
And you mentioned how the disproportionate of teachers and students when it comes to people of color. Do you think that with that gap that they are missing out on the education and the cultural awareness piece when it comes to classrooms?
100%. Oh, yeah. I mean, just because there's so much research that shows not only are Black teachers good for Black students, they're good for all students. Just because of their experience and the expertise that they're bringing, that we can't overlook culture, just because culture shapes society, right? It shapes everything that we do. And whether we want to be honest about it or not, the Black community has a strong hand in shaping mainstream culture. Right. And so to exclude Black teachers from your staff is to do yourself the greatest disservice. I mean, for your students and for the rest of the staff as well, for them to become knowledgeable of other things and how to relate and just learning from one another. Black teachers are often stronger disciplinarians. They're often more relatable. They're often ahead of the cusp when it comes to trends,
Right.
and setting trends and knowing how to really reach and meet students where they are and take the curriculum to a place that, you know, may not have been thought of before. And so I 100% agree that the lack of Black teachers is just a disservice to everybody.
Okay, and I want to play devil's advocate with that. Do you think that when we are in the classroom, meaning Black teachers, that we are putting more emphasis on the social expectations and taking away from the academic expectations?
I don't believe that, because they're equally as intelligent and capable of facilitating instruction at a high standard, at a high level. And I say that because, especially when because we know the plight, right? We have higher expectations for our students. So it goes beyond a cultural level. Like the cultural is how I loop you in, right? That's how I hook you. But once I hook you, now I can use my expertise and use that intelligence scope to heighten the academics, because again, those high expectations is what sets a great teacher apart from a mediocre teacher.
Right.
You know, is what you expect of your students, and it's how far you're willing to go within the curriculum. A mediocre teacher would just teach the curriculum and that's it. Whereas, like say a Black teacher would teach beyond, because they understand, again, the plight and what's expected and what's required. That oftentimes does go beyond the scope of a given curriculum. So yeah, I think it goes beyond the cultural aspect. We some hitters with the instruction too now.
Right. Yeah. I feel that. I agree. I just wanted to ask because, you know, people always have to combat everything that we say. So I want to make sure I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
Would you say that within the last 10 years that with the education progression from grade to grade, is it still aligned, or do you think we have lightened up on our expectations to suit the lack of competency?
Well, I believe the standards, like the Common Core state standards, are still aligned, and they show a necessary and a developmentally appropriate progression. However, I do believe that there has been this lack of accountability and this lack of competency as what we expect of our students, which goes back to training and our belief system. So when you don't have the training around what is culturally relevant and culturally responsive, we tend to get lost in what we believe Black students are actually capable of doing.
Right.
When we allow media and stereotypes to take over and word of mouth and just negative thinking, then you lower your expectations and you don't expect much. You don't think that they're capable. And even some teachers, as crazy as it sounds, because we all know that education doesn't pay well, but some teachers are just there for the paycheck.
Right.
And it shows, again, we're just teaching the curriculum at not at a subpar level. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, as far as like even the grading scales, where this now is shunned upon to give a student a grade of a 0, right? You have to give them a 50 when they didn't even do 50% of the work. I mean, that's just lowering the standards, because we still have to teach consequences.
Right.
And so we're ultimately not setting these students up for success. We are, in fact, setting them up for failure when, I mean, even it's something as small as making sure your first and last name, are on the paper.
Let me tell you.
Because some teachers would just take a first name, and it's like, oh my gosh, when some other teachers may have the expectation of the first and the last name. You know what I mean? It's just there's no consistency within even a school building, let alone a grade level, right, on a grade level team. And so with all these different inconsistencies and different expectations and just this overall disbelief system that we have in place, we are absolutely doing a disservice and not showing progression in terms of that type of alignment. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. And I'm over here thinking about memories. I'm having flashbacks. So I'm curious because when I think about my experience working in a school, I completely understand there is no consistency in the classroom. There's no consistency in the grade level. The entire school, there's just none. And I wonder your thoughts on deconstructing that. How would you fix it if you had the opportunity to say to a principal, you need to do this, this, and this in order to get some type of consistency within your school? Where would you start?
Oh, yeah. Well, automatically begins with the school leader, right? Everything starts from the head down. And so that's where I would meet with the school leadership, and we would have to develop some protocols as far as, what is the expectation of all students, regardless of, and all teachers, regardless of the grade level that they teach. I believe that just starting out with the basics, like first and last name, along with the date and take it back to old school. We had our headers, right? We had your first, your last name, the date, and the subject. That's still important. For various reasons. One, for the teacher to keep up and remain organized when she's grading or, collecting, providing feedback for student papers. Two, it's important for the student to be able to keep track and retain that information and understand that these notes go for this subject and that was given on this day. And if you have parents that are involved, that's key for them, because oftentimes I know for myself as a parent, I'll see a sheet of paper and I'm like, when did you do this? Because there's no date on it. What subject is this? It may look like it's something for math, but then my child will tell me it's related to social studies.
Right.
I'm like, well, why does
don't make sense?
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it may have words, but it's something different. And so just for that cohesiveness, for all stakeholders to be on the same page, that matters. So something as simple as that, just starting off with how students start with their papers, going down to how they handle discipline. There should be a school-wide cohesiveness of what are the protocols for a level 1 offense, what is considered a level 2 offense, so that all teachers are looking at behaviors through the same lens and that they're handling these situations the same way, so that we can't say one child is getting treated differently or there's favoritism or we're picking and choosing which child gets what punishment. There's a set protocol in place. And when you do that, you eliminate the leeway to be able to say this is racially led or this teacher just doesn't like me or this principal just doesn't like this family. You can't say that when there's a set protocol in place for the school as a whole. So those are some of the things, just establishing some norms and developing a cohesiveness that can work for all grade levels.
I like that. And true. Take it back to Cornell notes. I loved me a good Cornell note. Okay. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely amazing. It was very organized. That's where we need to be. Okay. Because these kids.
It's all over the place. And so you can't even ask them, well, what did you learn today? Because they can't even tell you what subject they did. And that's not necessarily 100% to blame for the student, because sometimes teachers, and I've witnessed this, don't even announce when they're switching subjects. They just go from one subject to the next and expect the children to just understand that we are no longer in reading. We're now doing science.
Right.
When for some, again, you're teaching, right? That's the gift and the art that's been lost. We're not teaching anymore. We're just standing up in front of kids and we're just regurgitating stuff. We're using scripted curriculums. We're doing what we're told to do at this time to be told to do it. And no one's actually teaching anymore.
Ooh, and that sparked another conversation. So I'm curious, right? I started teaching when the scripted curriculum, at least, was big in the county I was working in. What are your thoughts on that? Because obviously I got a little bit of what you think of it. And for me, just wanting to be a teacher and remembering my favorite teachers, a scripted lesson plan, scripted curriculum was not something I gravitated towards. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why I needed to write out verbatim what I was going to be teaching, because, you know, in the classroom, whatever happens, as long as you're in that subject and you're able to do it, you have no idea what that day is going to look like until you get in there. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think scripted curriculum should only be used like as a scaffold. So you know how we scaffold information for our students in order to build on to their knowledge.
Yeah.
I believe if you have a teacher that may be struggling or is brand new and again doesn't have strong mentorship or strong leadership within the school building, then scripted curriculum may be a good start for them. I don't believe they should live there. I believe that it should eventually, they should grow from it. They should get a grasp of what the framework is of that curriculum and the flow of how the lesson should go. But I don't think we should live there. My thing, or I don't want to say issue, but I'll just say my thing. My thing with scripted curriculum is it just takes away from teacher creativity and teacher autonomy. And you talk about a school to prison pipeline. I mean, when you have leadership telling you that these teachers need to be at this point in the lesson at this time, so when I go around, it just makes my observations easier. That sounds very militant and very prison-like to me. And again, how can we expect or say we want our teachers to tailor their instruction to meet the needs of their students when they have two completely different sets of students? You just shouldn't be seeing the same thing. I'm not saying they shouldn't be on the same lesson, because they should maybe be on the same lesson or at least covering the same topic, right? But I don't think every little thing has to be done at the same time. And that's what scripted curriculum can do.
Right.
I on one end, I can kind of understand how it makes, observations easier for leaders to see what it is they're trying to see. However, how is that teacher really progressing and developing if we can't see what they can actually do and create on their own?
And that goes back to that cohesion. If you're maintaining your procedures, such as submitting your lesson plans, you know what that classroom is doing. It has nothing to do with making it easier just by being on a time schedule. It's as simple as reviewing what has been submitted. So I definitely agree. I think that's very interesting insight. As far as students, right, do you believe that at any point, whether it's now within the process of a classroom or just in the future, that students will be considered a lost cause?
Unfortunately, this is not my belief. Personally, I don't believe that students are a lost cause, but I do believe that is how society or the educational system will begin to view them. Absolutely. And again, I don't believe that's at fault to the student. I believe a lot of it is, I'm gonna place the blame a little bit of everywhere, right? A lot of it is on parents. And a lot of it is on teachers as well.
Right.
So I believe that responsibility has to be shared. And some of it is on, again, administration, because how are we equipping our teachers? What standards are we holding them to? What evaluation systems do we have in place? And evaluation should always be punitive. Again, we should be evaluating to develop. That's what discourages teachers, I believe, is when they see it as punitive and they see it as, oh, I'm just being beat up on, or I can't do anything right. The purpose of evaluation should be to strengthen them.
Right.
So this may be an area that we need to work on. However, this is how we're going to help you get there. Right. And they actually have tangible evidence to demonstrate how they've helped this teacher or what efforts they've done to help this teacher grow and develop. So it starts with administration again. And then again, it starts with teachers being intentional about their lesson planning, being intentional about team planning, about sharing best practices, about staying up to date on current research and trends, about learning how to relate and bring in relevant examples to their classroom to bring their lessons to life. Because we have to, we hear it all the time, we have to meet our students where they are, but we're talking about children. Yeah. So we have to, they're still children. So we have to use things, whether it's technology, instead of, turning our nose up to technology, implement it. and instead of turning our nose up to games, implement it. Figure out what's a popular game that your students like and find a way, again, creativity, to turn that into a lesson of some sort. So that's something that teachers can do. Parents have to play their role and show up. They have to be aware of what's going on. They have to know what their student is struggling with, or what areas they may need improvement in, and they have to actually want to with the teacher. They have to be receptive to any feedback that the teacher or the school leadership has, and not always assume the worst,
right,
of teachers. Because understand that, I know as parents, we may feel like our children are targeted, or you don't like my children, and a lot of that is stemming from their own trauma with their experiences in school. So we have to learn to put our own personal feelings aside and assume the best, and that's what of everybody, of all stakeholders, and work together. I really feel like when parents work with their students and work with the teachers and leadership, and everybody all really works together in harmony, that students won't be a lost cause. But until that happens, unfortunately, that's the path it looks like we're traveling down.
Yeah. In the spirit of that, there are plenty of parents that are having to do double work in order to just maintain their homes. What would you give as far as advice for people trying to be more involved in their students', academic success?
Yeah. I get that a lot of children are in single parent homes, and so yes, they have multiple jobs and aren't able to give it. I would suggest looking into like tutoring programs. Look into your community. I know a lot of communities that offer free tutoring. Some churches even offer free tutoring, or even if it's not free, it's at a reasonable price. As parents, we have to prioritize, right? What are our priorities? I'm not saying your household isn't a priority, but maybe those concert tickets might not be a priority for the month. Right. Just maybe the latest shoes might not be a priority for the month, so that you can ensure that your child understands what's happening for this upcoming unit assessment that they have. And so I believe that that's something that they could do, or even partner with their child's teacher. Would you be willing to stay an extra 30 minutes one day a week to tutor my child one-on-one, or provide me with the resources that maybe I could do on my day off, or somebody in my family can help them do. Like we do still have villages, and the only thing you have to do is ask, right? A closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so those are my words of advice to do. Reach out to your local communities, partner with your teacher, partner with your school principal, and just lean on someone or lean on someone in your village. Hey, can you help me out with this? Ask for resources. We don't know what we don't know, right? And other people don't know what you need until, again, you ask for it. So that would be my advice to help with their students.
Oh, I love that. My main question that I want to make sure we touch on, do you believe that there is an agenda that is set to keep our children of color from being able to meet the same learning standards within our communities?
Ooh. I believe that there's oh wow. Oh, I believe that there is not enough empathy, and there's not enough concern for children who don't look like them. And I say them because 80% of the teachers in America, grades K through 12, are white.
80%. That's
80%. It is. And so when you have that large amount, and of course, the majority of students now in public schools K through 12 are students of color, whether they're Black, brown, biracial, they're students of color. So there is a gap, and the gap is cultural, but the gap is also empathy, and again, a true concern, and a belief system, a lack of belief system. And I think when all of those different components work together, it can contribute to systematic oppression,
Mhm.
and have the appearance of, this agenda.
Right.
But I don't know if people deliberately go into their classrooms and say, I'm really not going to do, you know what I mean? I can't say that. I don't want to believe that, because again, we're still working with children.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that teachers lack the like I said, the cultural competence part, and just empathy. And I feel like if we worked on those two and really practiced self-reflection and really, really focused on enhancing our skills as teachers, and enhancing our skills as people, we could eradicate the need for, or the appearance of, this said agenda. That's my thoughts on that.
I love that. And thank you for sharing that, because some of these questions is like, I don't know.
Yeah, I had to think about it. I was like, I don't know that I know there is an agenda. I know there's systemic oppression, right? And the one thing I believe so strongly with education is the one tool that levels the playing field. And so for that reason, I don't believe that it can be used for evil. I'm not saying it can't, but those with good intentions can also use it for good, and turn that narrative around.
Mm-hmm. And I love it, and I definitely agree. But I want to make sure we close it out with some positivity, because I know some teachers is like, wait a minute, I don't need to change their field. But with teaching, it's a beautiful thing, but you always have to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people with the knowledge for this field. So when it comes to choosing your position, whether it was when you first became a teacher up until now, what are some key things you looked for as far as administration, your students, and even yourself before choosing that position?
I look for like-mindedness within the mission. Do I agree with the mission? Do I feel like I could contribute to the mission of that school? Do I see the vision of what this leader is trying to bring out? So I believe starting there, of course, every school has a mission and a vision. Some of it is real basic. It's calling a thing, right? And some of them are actually really thoughtful. And I would lean towards working with the school who has a more thoughtful mission and vision, because that to me says they put a little bit more time, and it's not just a blanket statement of what it is that they're trying to do. That to me says there's more intentionality behind the plan. Also just seeing what the staff looks like. Again, we know 80%, like I just stated, of teachers in the U.S. and K-12 are white, but does the staff, is it reflective of the demographic of students that you teach, if that's important to you? Looking at the data that's available on through a state websites, is this a school, again, that you feel like you could contribute to? Do you want to continue riding their wave of excellence, if they're a school of excellence? Looking at all of those things, and just being mindful of what are you getting this job for? What is it that you really want to do? Because so many teachers say they get into education and make a difference, and then within the first year or two, they're burnt out, and they want to give up, and that's understandable. But I just want to press to say, when we're really trying to make a difference, that involves change, right? And change is not easy for a lot of people. And so you got to understand that you're in for a fight. And so you have to be strong-minded, and you have to stand strong and firm in your beliefs. And so whatever got you interested in education, hold tight to that, fight for that. And most importantly, fight for those students, because they need people who care to that level to want to be there for them. So those are some things that I will look for, and just try to remember that, yes, it's not going to be, but that's with any job, right? It's not going to be easy. There are going to be challenges, but this is a challenge that is worth it. This is social justice in a sense. this is life-changing. Education, I believe this with everything in me. Education has true transformative power. And it is truly something that no one can take from you once you have it. So we're talking about equipping our babies with the most powerful thing they could ever possess. And to know that you could be a part of that, whew,
Yeah.
that's powerful. And it's life-changing. And because it's so powerful, it's not something to take lightly. Right. So I would just encourage those who are seeking to get into education or looking for jobs to understand that, yes, the weight is heavy, but the rewards are fruitful and they're even greater.
I love it. And that was definitely an amazing way to close this episode, y'all. I am super excited. I didn't mention Yasha is also going to be on our panel for the education development segment at the end of August, y'all. I'm super excited to touch on more topics in education because this was just the surface. I appreciate you because, again, like I said, we have amazing conversation every time we talk, whether it's recorded or not. And I appreciate you.
Yes, I appreciate you, Jason. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all, again, this is Contrary to the Culture. Every other Tuesday, don't hold me to it. We are doing our best over here. Definitely make sure you come back in the month of August. We will be focusing on education in light of launching KMS Education. So definitely make sure you go to the website, support. Follow all our pages. And until next Tuesday for another amazing educator in this country. Thank you, guys. Until next time. Bye. Okay. And stop. All right, that was our episode. Thanks so much for listening to Contrary to the Culture. Again, I am your host, Jasa King. You can find full show notes from today's episode at audacityofwomen.com under the podcast tab. Let's connect on Instagram at Just Jasa Podcast. There you will find clips from our various segments and more information about yours truly. If you're loving the podcast, I'd be so honored if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a review. Until next time.
Ever need a boost, count on me for the 1-2. Trouble don't last when the tough get going. Baby, all we do is win, so show me my opponent. Adversity, doubt, stress, could care less. Cause how we handle those like an S on our chest. Super proud of how we held it.